Hey everybody, and welcome back to another book review. This one was a really great book, 5 out of 5 on this one, and that is Viola Davis's autobiography called Finding Me. So I started reading this one, and kind of like the one with Michelle Obama. I toggled between this and the actual reading and the audiobook. Viola Davis's audiobook is so theatrical. I mean, makes sense because it's Viola Davis. But it was really deep and really powerful, and I'd heard some of the things that she had gone through before, some of the abuse and experiences she had as a child. So I knew about that. I just didn't know the extent of it, and so really kind of digging into her book and reading it, like, wow. Woman has survived a lot, not just with abuse and trauma, but with like medical things, and her talking about her journey to being a mother. And so I really identified with some of those pieces, especially the piece when she's in her late 20s, early 30s, and really just kind of processing life and not feeling like she's fulfilled or like she's accomplished much and just working really hard. I completely identify with that because that's kind of how I feel a lot of times, just that unfulfillment of life, working really hard and trying to make ends meet and just feeling like nothing is working, like you're just not being successful. That imposter syndrome element of things, and life as you're working in whatever fields that you're working in. I really just identified with a lot of her story, and so that was nice to hear kind of her whole experience, her whole truth up into modern day. I also really liked hearing, she talks a lot about some of the behind the scenes factors on different movies that she's worked on, and just to hear that she's had some really great experiences with some of the movies that we know and love her for, and hearing about other celebrities and actors and actresses that she's worked with and just how wonderful they are. And that makes me feel good, that like, oh, I like this actress too, like I'm glad to know that she's human, because we all always hear about the ones who aren't and the ones who are just awful. So that's really great and awesome that we got to hear that side as well. And I will say that if you do decide to read this book, there's a lot of content warning. There's, she again talks about all the abuse that she and her family went through when they were kids and growing up and things like that. She talks about the forgiveness of somebody who has abused you, who has done you wrong. That's a very interesting battle that I don't think we really talk about too much, especially in terms of like, this person has done you so wrong, how can you ever forgive, and she talks about kind of the forgiveness journey from a personal side of things, and she's not saying that you have to forgive whoever it is right away. She talks about the process that she took to get there. So that's, really important. And I think that's something that a lot of us could probably use. We might not have necessarily gone through abuse as severe as what she did, but some of us have gone through some serious traumas, and people have hurt us. People have done us really wrong to a point that we're like, we can never forgive them, and other people are like, how could you ever forgive them, but the journey to forgiveness is different for everybody. So I liked that aspect of it. And I would also say content warning for language. Like there was a lot. It was in the first sentence. There's a lot of language in this book, so if you're not a big person that likes reading things like that, fair warning. But yeah, it was, it was so good. I mean, especially from the audiobook standpoint, I could just really picture the stories that she was telling, and the juxtaposition of, I remember this time back when I was, whatever age, but then also comparing to where she was at as an adult, hearing those two kind of juxtapositions. If you've watched How to Get Away with Murder, a lot of that raw emotion and stuff is like true lived experience of Viola Davis. What Annalise Keating went through, like Viola Davis has quite literally lived through some of that. So that was really interesting to hear kind of her take on this show, but also to hear her reality and to be able to experience that on screen. Oh gosh, just gorgeous, good. So yeah, I don't have any complaints about this book. It just really powerful. And again, I think I said this after the Michelle Obama book and some of the other books that I've read that are more autobiographies and life books and things like that. I feel like they're always just perfectly timed with what I need to hear in my own life, and to know, I know that I'm not failing at life, that I'm not successful. But even though those things in your head, sometimes you just kind of need the reevaluation, the juxtaposition, the ability to just kind of let yourself understand that this is, where you're at, and it's okay that you haven't been what is deemed as successful. She talks a lot about that, idea of this is what, the world expects of you, and this is how we do that as Black women. She talks about a lot of the experience of being Black women in America, and the oppressive nature of both facets of that. Just there's one thing of being Black in America. There's a lot of oppression with that, and I know a lot of people don't think that the oppression exists, but it does in the institutionalized racist facet of our country. Like, this is what our country was founded on, and it's not. We can hope that it goes away, and if you never witness it or you never experience it, you just assume that it doesn't exist, right? But for those of us who are Black, we see this constantly every day. We see those nuggets of the past that are just sitting right in front of us constantly. I know I see that every day, especially being an educator. I'm sitting in my classroom again. But just what we see that the children go through that are Black and brown, it's sprinkled throughout, daily life for a Black person. But then on top of that, to be a Black woman in America is a whole extra, layer. It's a whole extra level that that unfortunately white people are never going to experience or understand, and I appreciate white folks that are sympathetic and understand that, there is something powerful in lived experiences, but understand that, just because you're sympathetic to us and that you support whatever growths or jobs or whatever we have, you will never understand our lived experience, our daily lived experience, or our shared experience. And I really appreciated just kind of how she brought that into the story from both a Hollywood standpoint and a stage standpoint. She really highlighted some things that I was like, yep, that's part of the reason that I'm not acting anymore, that I'm not doing theater. I think I've said this before, that I miss it. I definitely miss it. I miss performing. I miss kind of getting into a script and all that. And I still read scripts, as I see them or I hear about different plays. I'm like, oh, I'll just read the script, but I do miss performing. But some of it is that trauma that we experience personally, the lived in trauma of theater and the expectations of theater and the training that we go through. She talks about the training at Juilliard, which, I didn't go to Juilliard, but I completely understood what she's talking about. This idea of, like, you have to perform this way and you have to do it this way, and it's only going to be this way because that's what the white audience wants. And being able to perform a character the way that we want the character to be, and not just being relegated to specific roles or typecast in specific roles. And so it was nice to hear that and understand that, like, my feelings are valid. I knew my feelings were valid because I talked to other Black actors and actresses about that. And then she also talks about something that I don't think we talk enough about, which is colorism in Hollywood and on stage and screen, and just the fact that colorism has not disappeared. It's not gone away. We still see it to this day. And me kind of being smack in the middle, I'm Viola Davis talks about being a dark-skinned actress, and she doesn't just mean black. She means the darker color, the darker shades. And it's true that women that are her color don't frequently get, certain roles, and women who are closer to my shade and lighter, tend to get more roles because we are closer to being palpable, if you will, for the white gaze. And I really appreciated all of her delving into all of that. But at the same time, she's also like, but as a whole, Black women have always experienced the fact that, like, you're not an ingenue. You will never be, the cute love interest or whatever it is, because we're not palpable to, what white people want. And I remember hearing that frequently when I was still acting. And it's not I definitely don't think that any of the directors or anybody that I've ever worked with, friends and professionals, that have said those things, I truly don't think they understand why. It's like, oh, you're not right for the role. Okay, well, as a director, your job is to direct. So figure out how to help me get to the point that I am right for the role, where it's not being overshot by my skin. And truly, you can tell a difference when it is about skin tone, it's about voice quality, it's about your hair. You can truly tell a difference with that. I remember there was one play, and I won't say which one, but I remember being told that I wasn't right for the lead. And anyone that was actually in this show will probably figure out which one I'm talking about. But part of it was that, it just didn't seem logical that a Black girl could do an accent, first off. Okay, I twitch. And then I also wasn't right for, a leading lady. I twitch number 2. And then eventually several of the cast members had to dye their hair or bleach their hair, etc., which at the time I wouldn't have minded doing, but it wouldn't have made sense, but just this idea that, as a white girl, you can alter your appearance easily, and well, you're Black, you can't do that. I went blonde during 2020. It's totally possible. And in the real world, there are Black people that are naturally blonde. We don't see them as frequently, but they do exist. Just like people freaked out over, Little Mermaid. Like, Black people can't have red hair. I beg to differ. Like, my great grandmother had red hair. It does exist. So just the personal side of Viola Davis's story, and just knowing them, like, okay, I'm not crazy, and being validated in that was just nice to hear, especially from somebody who is as successful as Viola Davis. So this has been a very long video. Did not mean for it to be this long, but I hope you all get a chance to read her book. And again, continue to send book recommendations. I got this one from the boss here at school, and she was like, "Oh, you got to read it," so I did. But I hope you all continue to send more book recommendations, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.